Yeah, so one of the thing about Japan Dev is like if some people are using it and they find a new job, they're not gonna use it again for the next maybe 2 or 3 years, right? So this makes a little bit difficult to get continuous revenue because they're not repeating customers. So do you like find marketing difficult due to this?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a limiting factor. you know, at least it's not like a one-time only purchase or anything like that. Like there is a cycle. And like you said, it is probably about 2 or 3 years. The question is just, is the market big enough that you can have that 2 to 3 year cycle and make sure that you'll still have enough applicants for it to be a viable business, right? And I think that that is definitely the case. Obviously, I'd prefer if they changed jobs a little more frequently, just in terms of the business. But I do think that that cycle is totally fine. There are enough people interested in working in Japan right now, in these sort of like modern companies that I'm trying to push on my site. And I also think it's actually growing, the number of people trying to work in these types of positions. So I feel pretty good about the market overall. But yeah, it would be nice if that wasn't the case, right? If they could just come back and use the site every day for years, right? But it is not that kind of service, unfortunately.
Although your customers won't come back maybe for 2-3 years, it still has very good word of mouth publicity. When people who want to move to Japan post on subreddits like moving to Japan or Japan Life, I can see a lot of people recommending Japan Dev to find new jobs. So it might be either like there's a good reputation for Japan Dev, or it's just you using 10 different accounts to boost Japan Dev. Either way, it's working.
Recently in the global market, so if you see the trends in US, or I've also been watching the trends in India, and the jobs in tech sector are really booming and like salaries are increasing by a lot. So do you also see similar trends in Japan right now?
Yeah, Japan's an interesting case right now, of course, given the whole COVID restrictions. The borders are not really open to people getting new visas to move here. So that has created a little bit of interesting situation, right? Where it's a great market right now for people within Japan. And that's obviously one sector of our users. But then there's also the sector of people who want to move to Japan from elsewhere, and they're not able to do that right now. So I think the number of people who are able to move has decreased. And there are still some people who are going to be getting jobs where they're going to be working overseas for a little while and then moving over to Japan when it's safe to do so. But that has created this really interesting climate right now where I think it's actually a great time to change jobs if you're already here in Japan. That's good for people here already, right? But it doesn't help people over in the US or somewhere where they're trying to get to Japan, but they can't. But yeah, I think there is like a clear need for like talented engineers. That's true in the US. It's true in Japan. I think it's especially true in Japan, actually, because it's still lagging behind a little bit in terms of like the software developer education, things like that. So there aren't as many people like coming out of colleges here with the skills to really jump in and work at the types of companies that we specialize in. So I think that lack of engineers, that demand is going to keep getting stronger and stronger. So I think, yeah, it's a great time for the market right now. Also, the amount of like startups has been increasing. The amount of venture funding has been going up. I mean, it's still pretty small relative to somewhere like the US, but it's increasing a lot as well. So I think there's a lot of factors actually that make it a really interesting place to be right now.
Since there are different, like more startups coming in, what are some different job profiles that you see? Like they are a class apart from the normal job postings that you see on average. So how are like companies attracting new talent, basically?
There's the job posts themselves. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, to be honest. We can go into that if you want. Like the, kind of how to write a nice job description.
Copywriting. It's a very important skill.
It's so important. And the average level, I feel like, of the copywriting in job descriptions is still just not there. So I always try to tell companies that, like, make it benefit driven. My philosophy about that is like, you got to act like every applicant is a potential hire and like could be the next like superstar, right? Obviously, the statistics say that like maybe you'll hire 1 in 100 or so. Most of them won't actually get through your interview, but you have to, I think, approach it from the assumption that like every person you're talking to could be, and then you're really trying to attract them. Here's why this is a great place to work. Here's why we want, what you can do if you work with us, that kind of thing. I feel like so many companies, they approach it from this like kind of condescending thing where it's like, here are all the like hurdles that you have to get past. We need someone who has this and this and this and this, all these requirements. And it's like, why are you like giving them reasons not to apply? You want as many people coming in because anyone could be that next like core person, right? So I think companies are going to have to learn that as the market becomes more strict and it's harder and harder to attract those top people. I think they're going to have to really understand that. And like you said, copywriting, figuring out how to write things in a way that really is like showing the benefit to people and really attracting them. I also think one thing companies really need to learn, I think they really need to understand that it's not all about acquisition and like acquiring new talent, but it's also about trying to keep the people that you have and focusing more on retention. That's one thing that I just personally, like anecdotally, I've felt like so few companies really invest in like retention. And it's more like they build out these big like talent acquisition teams, and it's constantly like, how do we get more people into the company? And then if you look at like market like salaries, for example, a lot of times they will be increasing like pretty quickly. And obviously there's this situation where you can kind of map it out and say like, oh, if I change jobs every 2 years, unfortunately, an engineer with 2 years of experience is worth a lot more than a new grad. And an engineer with 4 years of experience is worth a lot more than one with 2. So you can say like, this is what I'll be worth in 2 years. This will be what I'll be worth in 4 years. And basically, so few companies really are able to keep up with that progression, right? So it creates a situation where you can basically objectively look and say, well, I could stay at this company and earn X, or I could jump around a little bit and earn Y, and Y is significantly higher than X, unfortunately. So yeah, I think companies just need to understand that and say, like, look at the incentives and say like, okay, this is how much we need to pay. But then instead of having to hire a new person and take that risk, we have this person that we like. So let's just keep them at the like the pay level where it would actually be competitive with the market were they to be like switching jobs, right? So I think that dynamic, I think it'll balance out. It'll reach like some sort of equilibrium. Yeah, exactly. But it hasn't yet. And I think that unfortunately that's still kind of the case where in a lot of markets, at least, it might depend on like the area and everything, but there's the situation where you can essentially make more by switching jobs because companies just don't invest as much in retention and making sure that they're paying competitive wages to their existing people. So that's another thing I think companies really just need to do better.